Hello and welcome to Daytime, your place for scary stories straight from the horror forums of Reddit. Make sure to like and subscribe for more horror tales of things that go bumping the night. On tonight's episode, a man must seek answers for his friend searching for love. So, do you believe in love at first sight? Because I fell in love with the strange woman in the window.
So she just sits there, I asked, and you're just staring at her like a creep?
No. It's not like that. It's like she wants you to look, grinned Reggie. She shows off her legs, her white little panties. She throws her red hair around.
That doesn't make you any less creepy.
She knows I'm there. Hell, last time she smiled at me.
She smiled at you, I scoffed. A human woman actually smiled at you. You, Reggie.
I get a hell of a lot more smiles than you,
He teased.
and I swear, she smiled at me. I'm telling you, I'm in love.
Tinder not working out for you? Super likes not getting you anywhere?
If I had to choose between a random woman smiling at me from a window once every 2 weeks, or getting a match that isn't a bot on the Tinder meat market, I'd choose Window Girl 10 times out of 10.
I'll drink to that. And so we did. 6 shots of tequila and a game of pool later, we said our goodbyes. Then he disappeared. One day, he was just gone. No messages, no logins, no goodbyes, no witnesses, no indication of him going anywhere. There were rumors of him being attacked. There'd been news of an up-and-coming masked gang harassing a neighboring town, but nothing was confirmed. The police did a decent job bringing in the usual suspects, but nothing came of it. They even had search parties looking around the old campgrounds. There was talk of having a diver check the lake, but I don't think they ever did. Of course, they were following all leads, but that one thing Reggie'd rambled about on that last night when I saw him. The pretty girl who'd smiled at him from a window. It was a struggle to find out anything about her. This is a big town. Reggie traveled pretty far from work to home. I must have traveled that same road 100 times, back and forth, looking for whatever window he could have seen her in. But he wasn't very specific. There were apartments, houses, rentals, motels, hundreds of windows all along the road. How would I know which one he'd been looking at? I started taking Reggie's road home every day, just to see if I could see what he saw. It was a hassle, but it gave me a pretty good idea about where he'd look, what he'd do. It wasn't a long way out of my way, and I wasn't planning on doing it forever. So I told myself I had to at least try. 6 weeks after his disappearance, I was ready to give up. The police already had. The case had gone cold. There were no more leads to follow. One night, as I followed that same damn road, I stopped at a corner shop to get a Coke. Standing with a cold can in the evening breeze, a thought struck me. Maybe the woman wasn't just someone he happened to see randomly. Maybe it was someone he went out of his way to see. Someone slightly off his usual route. Like someone you might see when you step out to get a Coke. Right across the street from the corner store, just above a bookstore, was a small apartment and had this wide window alcove that overlooked the street. There was someone sitting in the window. She wasn't at all what Reggie had described. She wasn't flaunting her underwear or flipping her hair around. She was this 20-something young woman, cuddled up in the alcove, reading. She had these big, dorky glasses and long brown hair. Not red like Reggie had said. Striking green eyes, just like my first crush had, back in middle school. Still, I couldn't help but to stare. This had to be her. This was the woman Reggie had talked about, and I could see why he'd fallen in love. It was damn near impossible not to. I must have stood there for the better part of 5 minutes. I had every intention to check the address, see who lived there, and try to find out all I could about her. And yet all I did was stand there and gawk as she gently turned the pages. Then, as soon as her head moved in my direction, I looked away and hurried back to my car. It was embarrassing to say the least. I could still see her in the rearview mirror as I got back out on the road. I'd talk to her the next day. Or maybe the day after that, whenever I could work up the courage and maybe find out a bit more about her. I did find out a few things. That corner apartment wasn't a rental, so someone owned it. It hadn't been sold in the past 20 or so years, so whoever owned it had lived there for a while. It was one of the older houses in town, and there were pictures of it from all the way back in the 60s. Even the same bricks, only slightly paled by the sun. The following weekend, I went back during the day. This time, the window was empty. I took the time to just walk around and check the place out, see if I could get a name. I took the time to check out the bookstore under the apartment. It was this old, dusty place that I'd seen for years, but never actually bought anything from. It was run by these two older men, bickering about some nonsense in one of the back rooms. As soon as I entered and that bell rang, I saw their two heads peeking out. "Hey," I called out. You the owners?" They looked at each other, paused, and sighed in unison. One of them, the one without a lengthy beard, approached me.
You looking for something?
He asked, "It's about the apartment. I don't know if you..." They both rolled their eyes. The man in the back shook his head and went back to his computer.
Of course you are.
The beardless old man sighed.
I'm sorry. We can't help you.
"I'd appreciate whatever you know. You've never talked to her?"
I haven't even seen her, sorry. My partner told me he's seen her brother once.
I could hear a jubilant, "I have," from the back room. I got the feeling that they'd had this discussion a few times already.
I'm sorry, they keep to themselves. We don't want to bother them.
"Have they never been down here? Bought anything? I saw her reading."
Might have,
He nodded.
but I wouldn't know. I don't ask every customer where they live. Maybe we ought to start.
He gave me an apologetic shrug and returned to the counter. I thanked them, waved, and left. I asked around the neighborhood. Random people on the street, passers-by who seemed familiar with the area. At one point, I called out to a half-naked woman sunbathing in her yard. I talked to a dozen or so people. No one had anything clear to say about the woman who lived above the bookstore. Some claimed she lived alone, others said she lived with her brother. Some thought it was her father or her husband. But it was clear she wasn't living alone. One man claimed he'd seen an older woman walking around up there, so maybe it was a whole family. Then again, they didn't seem to have a car, and no one had seen them leave. I was getting a funny feeling about the girl living there. It wasn't a large apartment, so I couldn't imagine so many people living there. One or two, sure, but 3, 4? No way. I decided to take matters into my own hands. It took me a lot of stomping around to build up the courage, but I made my way up the stairs to the apartment door. The name on the door just said More. Strange family name. I stood outside her door for a solid minute before I knocked. Had I known she wasn't home, I wouldn't have bothered. I knocked 2 more times, but there was no one to answer. Instead, I just stood there like an idiot. If I'd had any paper, I'd left a note. I did take a mental note of the other 2 apartments on the same floor being empty, though. Strange. I started going by that street regularly, once a day, waiting for her to show up in the window again. Every day, sometimes more than once, I passed that street. I was starting to wonder if I was still doing this to find out what happened to Reggie, or if I was genuinely interested in that woman I'd seen in the window. Maybe it wasn't even the same person. After all, she looked nothing like the woman Reggie had described. It took me 2 weeks of diligent watching to finally see her again. When I did, I nearly got in an accident. I slammed on my brakes, shocking the driver behind me. I parked outside the corner store, and I just stood in the middle of the dark street, gawking at her. It was the same woman, same brown hair, another book it looked like, and she'd cuddled up with a blanket. There was a cup of something warm next to her, fogging up the inside of the window. I could see those emerald eyes all the way down the street. She was magnificent. In a moment of onset stupidity, I waved at her. I couldn't help myself. To my surprise, she turned to me. She put down her book, tilted her head, and met my gaze. She looked bored, frustrated even. There I was, some random man on the street, waving at a young woman in the privacy of her home. I was being an idiot. Then she smiled at me, and I fell in love. This warm, genuine emotion. She was so happy to see me. She was eager to meet me, I could tell. I had to go see her. I ran across the parking lot, crossed the street, and went around the back of the building. But as I put my hand on the door to the apartment complex, I felt a tiny drop of water on the back of my hand. For a moment, it made me stop, just long enough to think. As one drop turned into 100, I snapped out of it. This was too strange. I'm not a bad-looking man, but finding myself running across the street to knock on a stranger's door, that ain't me. I wasn't being myself. Maybe the same thing had happened to Reggie. I wiped the rain from my face and went inside. I hadn't even noticed the strange blue mesh bags used for garbage piled in a corner of the hallway. This time, I felt a bit more observant, but I still walked up those stairs, and I still knocked on that door. Not just to see a pretty face, but to ask questions. This time, she was home. I knocked 3 times, firmly.
Come in.
A soft voice spoke. I just want to ask a few questions, I said, about a friend of mine.
Come in.
The voice repeated. I took a deep breath and felt the handle. It was open. This wasn't right. A lone woman letting a strange man into her apartment at this hour? Sure, this wasn't a big town, but this was just odd. Shouldn't she at least meet me at the door? I could see a shine from the peephole. She was nowhere near the door. She wasn't even looking out. Do you mind coming out for a sec? I asked. It won't take long.
Come in.
I'm sorry to bother you. It's just...
Come in.
My stomach slowly turned as a chill crept up my spine. I let go of the handle and backed away. I'm sorry. Can you hear me all right? I think the door...
Come in.
Oh, she heard me. No way she didn't. Was she mocking me? I need to talk to you. I'm not coming in. No response. A shadow suddenly blocked the light from the peephole. Someone was looking out at me, and I hadn't even heard her move. I took a step back, leaning against the wall across from the door. I should leave, I said. I'm not...
Come in.
This time the voice was harsher, insistent. It wasn't an invitation anymore, it was a request. I felt my heart skip a beat, and I just kept backing further and further away from the door. As I reached the stairs, I heard a mechanical sound. A click. A lock. I peeked down the stairs. I could see someone by the exit, a shadow locking the door from the outside. Reggie? I didn't get time to think as I heard a creaking noise. The front door was opening. She was coming out, and whoever had been downstairs disappeared into the night.
Come in.
This time the voice was dark, bubbling, like someone speaking underwater. All I got was a short glimpse. Her gorgeous brown hair, hiding a strange face. Scaly skin that changed tint as I looked at it. Too many eyes. Some blue, some brown, some striking green. The components of the beautiful woman I'd seen, scattered about something wrong. I would have stared at her forever, had I not been instinctively backing away. I lost all balance as I reached the edge of the stairs, and I tumbled backwards. It felt like an instant, like no time passed at all. I was suddenly on the ground floor looking up the stairs. I was bruised, my leg twisted. Behind me, I could feel the front door locked.
Come in.
I heard from the top of the stairs.
Come in. Come in.
A face peeked around the corner. It was rearranging, making itself pretty, discarding old teeth to regrow new ones. Little white molars danced their way down the stairs, only to turn to dust. She was changing hair color to black, and her skin to a Mediterranean tan. She was starting to resemble my first girlfriend. I closed my eyes and turned to the front door. I heard clumsy footsteps slowly make their way down the stairs behind me as I pounded on the door. I screamed for help, forcing myself to my feet. Another footstep.
Come in.
I kept screaming for help, pounding on the thick glass.
Come in.
There was a sudden heat near me, someone warm and inviting, the smell of exotic fruit shampoo, something resembling a hand reaching out to me, brushing against my jacket. Then someone stepped out. One of the old men from the bookstore, the beardless one. Instantly, I heard the footsteps behind me hurry, back up the stairs. The old man unlocked the door as I scrambled out of the complex. My twisted leg couldn't support me, so I fell flat onto the pavement, crawling backwards. Away from the thing I'd seen and smelled, the old man looked confused. Call the police, I stammered. Call them, dude. Oh my God. The old man brought out his phone and dialed the emergency number. He kneeled down next to me, putting his hand on my shoulder.
Are you okay?
He asked.
Did that man do something to you?
What?
The man. That young man by the stairs. Did he hurt you?
I just sat there on the pavement. I barely even moved until the police came. I told them I'd been attacked. I told them there was something wrong with the one living in the Morey apartment. I told them about Reggie, about the girl in the window. I must have just kept babbling on and on and on as they took me back to their squad car. The owner of the bookstore just looked at me apologetically and waved goodbye, giving a short statement to one of the officers. I don't think they did a damn thing to whoever or whatever lives in that apartment. I think they did nothing, found nothing, and just chalked it up to me being hysterical. I'm getting mixed messages depending on the officer I ask about it. One says, no one lives there. Another says, they're out of town. One claimed it was some sort of storage. No one is giving me a straight answer. I think Reggie is still out there. I think something was done to him, but I don't know what. I think he lost himself to whatever lives in that apartment. And sometimes, to this day, I stop by that corner store to see if there's someone in that window. And sometimes, there is.
Hello and welcome to Daytime, your place for scary stories, straight from the horror forums of Reddit. Make sure to like and subscribe for more horror tales of things that go bumping the night. On tonight's episode, a celebration turns into a nightmare when things become all too real. So on the night of this full moon, prepare for your doom, because something went wrong with our escape room.
We wanted to do something special for Lindsay's birthday. She'd turned 30 just as the COVID lockdown came into effect, so we missed a big one. So when the stars finally aligned and our calendars synced up, we decided we were going to get her something special. A girls' night out for the first time in years. Lindsay always had a bit of a dark streak. Her birthday is just 1 week before Halloween, so by then everything is pumpkin flavored and covered in plastic spider webs. Spooky things were just part of her aesthetic, and even as a mother of two, we'd still see her sporting a skull necklace or pentagram earrings every now and then. But we were running out of time. We couldn't decide what to do. Some of us could set aside the whole weekend, others had to work or be home by midnight. It was getting difficult to settle on a single thing that would fit everyone. That is, until Aggie found something that was just perfect. An escape room. We all met up on a Saturday. It was me, Dawn, Aggie, and Lindsay. After a fancy dinner and a long walk, we arrived at the Apostle Collective building. They'd opened about a year ago, and they'd been booked solid all spring long. That we managed to book a room this close to Halloween was nothing short of a miracle. Some of you have probably heard about them. They're sort of a chain. They got like 5 locations, most of them in Minnesota. The place was spot on. It didn't just have the classic Halloween stuff, but smoke machines, hidden speakers, projectors, the whole kit. The staff were dressed up in prosthetics, looking like old-time zombie carnival workers. We stepped in. They checked our booking and gave us a little box of free popcorn. Lindsay was ecstatic. We'd told the staff it was all for her birthday, so they paid a little extra attention to her. She deserved it. As we stepped up to the door, they gave us an introduction.
You're stepping into the box of the godless grinning witch.
We were told.
This is our longest, scariest room yet. Pretty much brand new apart from playtesters. You were lucky to get a booking. The other group canceled last minute. Either way, all you need to solve it can be found in there. Just try not to break any furniture or move something that's been bolted down. None of the clues will require a lot of force, so you wouldn't have to break anything or exert yourself.
Are there actors?
Dawn asked.
You can tell us, right?
I can, but I won't. But whatever happens, you won't be harmed. Something might reach for you, chase you, touch you, but no harm. So please try to keep that in mind.
Are you leaving the door open?
Aggie asked.
Can we leave at any time?
Just knock or send us a text. The door locks automatically, but we can open it remotely with the click of a button. Just knock.
So what's the story? What's our deal?
Interrupted Lindsay.
Ghouls? Ghosts? Vampires?
I was so happy to see Lindsay like that. She could barely stand still. The box of the godless grinning witch is about a cruel witch who have trapped 4 souls in a little box. As they scramble to get out, they start realizing they're not alone. The souls have to find a way out while avoiding the monstrous beings trapped in there with them. There were no more hints, and part of the experience was going into it knowing just 2 things. We had been captured, and we weren't alone. Aggie kept her phone so she could text for hints and reach the staff if necessary. The rest of us put ours away. This was going to be an intense game, with a solve time average of about 4 hours. That said, we were allowed to stay until midnight. And if we solved it without a hint, we got a very special prize. We could also send them a text to pause the game for a bathroom break. We put away our coats, Dawn did a little stretch, and Lindsay was visibly shaking with excitement. This was going to be good. I was the last one to step inside. Just as the door closed behind us, I noticed the staff members suddenly look off to the side. Their brow furrowed as they stepped back. In the blink of an eye, they were gone. Then the door slammed shut. There was something off, but I didn't want to alarm anyone. They were so excited, and the game was just getting started. It was a black, windowless room. Lindsay was being chatty, but Dawn and Aggie were kind of wondering what the hell they'd agreed to. After a few seconds, there was this chilling laugh, followed by a light. They'd installed a video projector in the ceiling. The entire room lit up as we looked up to see a video of an impossibly large woman looking down on us, like we were the size of a Rubik's Cube in her hand. She had these sunken, joyless eyes and a wide grin that stretched ear to ear. Clearly CGI. Far above her, we could see the full moon. As an effect, it was pretty impressive.
I think she's based on a local legend,
Said Aggie.
some kind of pilgrim myth. I've heard about this.
As the grinning witch put her hand over us, the room went dark once again, and electric torches flared up along the walls. The game was on. There were all kinds of items all around. Paintings, carpets, chests, tables with strange runes. Classic escape room stuff. We all split up and started looking through whatever we could first get our hands on. Aggie found some sort of pamphlet and started calling out names. Dawn found a set of numbers under a chair. Lindsay was just soaking up the atmosphere, trying to find clues in the paintings. About 30 minutes in, there was this awful sound. A rattling cage, followed by snapping metal. There was a loud moan and approaching footsteps. There were a few spots in the room that were obvious hiding places, so we hurried inside. Lindsay couldn't stop giggling, and even I felt my pulse racing a bit. But nothing happened. The pre-recorded noises came and went. There was this disconnect, like a pair of real footsteps were supposed to sort of take over the sound, but nothing happened. We just hid for a couple of minutes, then stepped out.
Did we miss something?
Dawn asked. There was a pregnant pause as we looked around the room. Nothing. Strange. We made decent progress. We found a set of keys that opened a chest, which revealed a black light disguised as a candle. Using it, we found a set of codes to decipher using a set of runes. We found out there was a touchpad behind a painting, which we could use to write a code. That in turn opened a small side room full of clues. So, yeah, decent progress. Then again, we heard strange noises, rattling chains, loud moans, and thundering footsteps. We figured this was it, that the previous one had just been a warning. So again, we rushed to our hiding spaces. And again, nothing happened. This time, something was clearly broken. There was a recorded voice coming from the ceiling.
I think he likes you.
It whispered.
Like hell he does.
Aggie frowned.
He's not coming out.
Relatable.
Grinned Dawn.
I'm using the bathroom. Text him.
Aggie texted the staff as Dawn pulled on the door. It was still locked.
Wait,
Aggie said.
they haven't responded yet?
Dawn knocked on the door. There was no response. No sound.
Still nothing.
Added Aggie.
No one.
Something turned in my stomach. That sudden pinch of worry that something had gone terribly wrong. As Dawn kept pulling on the door, Lindsay stopped smiling. The pep in her step faded.
Is this part of it?
Lindsay asked.
Is it a meta thing? Are you in on it?
No, I protested. It's just one of those auto-locking doors and they forgot to set it open. Right? It's probably nothing, right?
No response.
Sighed Aggie, holding her phone up.
I'm calling Hank.
As the others gathered around Aggie, I stepped away for a second. Aggie's husband, Hank, wasn't picking up. I put my ear up against the walls and listened, figuring I might be able to hear the staff chit-chatting in the next room over. There were supposed to be actors here, or staff just outside. Something about this wasn't adding up. As I leaned against the wall listening, I heard footsteps again. But this time, they didn't sound pre-recorded. I hurried to the others, holding a finger up to my lips. Listen, I mouthed. There was a slit in the wall where a door could open from the other side. Someone was coming this way.
Is that them?
Dawn asked.
Is that?
Those were big steps. Really big, heavy steps. Without knowing who was coming, we all just silently agreed that this whole thing felt completely off. No one knew what to do.
Hide!
Dawn hissed. There were plenty of things to hide behind, but the room was small. They'd find us in no time. Despite that, Lindsay and I hid in the small side room. We shut the door, held our breaths, and waited. Dawn was small enough to fit in a chest, while Aggie hid behind a curtain in the back of the room. In the low light, it might just work. As the door slid open, I could hear heavy breathing, big, dragging feet, and a weird, wet, snorting noise. A clear scratching sound as something sharp was pulled across the floor.
Please pick the small one first, Byron.
A hoarse voice wheezed.
Go on, pick it.
A pig-like screech echoed through the room in response. This wasn't a recording. This was coming from whoever was in the room. There really was something there. Something big. I heard the sudden sound of tearing fabric and a scream. This awful, drawn-out death scream. A shrieking, pleading terror as someone was physically dragged out of the room. I'd never heard anything like it, and it was impossible to tell who it was. Then, with a thud, it all went silent. The door was closed. Lindsay and I peeked out. The curtain that Aggie had hid behind had been torn down. She was gone. There was blood. We found Dawn curled up in a chest, shivering. She couldn't make eye contact. When we tried to snap her out of it, she just screamed and clawed at us. Her eyes were wild, and she was barely breathing.
Did you see anything?
Lindsay whispered.
Wait, what? What was it?
Dawn just shook her head. I could see there was a crack in the wooden chest. She might have been able to see something. We just weren't getting through to her.
I'm not waiting for that to come back.
Lindsay said.
Help me get the lights.
What? I shivered. The lights. It can't find us in the dark. We went torch by torch and shut it all down. The room went completely dark, and we gathered by Dawn's hiding spot. We crouched next to her, trying to calm down.
It's part of it, right?
Whispered Dawn.
Is Aggie in on it? Are you just fucking with me?
No, something's wrong. I whispered back. I'm sorry, Dawn. There's...
Bullshit.
Wheezed Lindsay.
This is fucking bullshit, and I'm not... Who's got the phone?
We all went quiet. Aggie was the one with the phone.
There has to be fucking... something,
said Lindsay.
Feel around.
For what? I wheezed. Where? I don't know. How the fuck should I know? Just try. Do something. I stepped up to the door. Still locked and no one outside. I started feeling around, only to find 2 cables. They might just be a light or something, but there was another possibility. Look, maybe the door is locked until we text them or time is up. What if the door unlocks? Like, what if it unlocks when we solve it?
It won't work,
sighed Lindsay.
There are some things in here that require a staff member to manually click something open with a button. Some clues just won't work without it. But I don't think there's anyone out there anymore.
What about fire escapes? You can't just lock people in a room? I could hear Lindsay sink down to the floor.
This is a mistake.
she cried.
All of it.
The side door slammed open again. Big, heaving footsteps came in. Even in the complete dark, we could tell there was someone huge in here with us. Someone who smelled like dirt. Again, something sharp scraped across the floor.
Byron, get another one.
A voice laughed.
Whichever you like.
I just pushed myself up against the wall and turned my head on the side. I tried making myself as flat as possible. I knew Lindsay was doing the same. Dawn, on the other hand, was panicking.
No!
She coughed. No! A loud, pig-like snort. The scraping thing was lifted off the ground. I heard 2 feet firmly planting in the ground as something heavy was lifted, and Dawn fell to the ground with a thud. She tried to talk, but she'd had all wind knocked out of her. Instead, she just tried to get away. I heard a loud exhale, the kind of sound where someone gets something heavy dropped on them. And in the seconds that followed, I heard this large being, Byron, violently drag Dawn out of the room. To the untrained ear, her scream was almost the same as Aggie's. As the door slammed shut again, I could hear Lindsay sobbing just a few feet away. I couldn't move. My body was stopping me from comforting her, and I'd been so tense my neck was stiff from pushing my face against the wall. For what felt like hours, we just waited. It was probably just minutes. Finally, Lindsay got up. She fumbled her way over to one of the tables, flipped it on its side, and broke a leg off. Then she did it again and handed the second leg to me.
Don't just let them, you know?
She said.
Okay?
Yeah. I nodded. Yeah. No, I won't. I started to hyperventilate as my fingers wrapped around the slippery wood. There was no way I could use this. My hands were so sweaty the thing was falling out of my grip. I couldn't fight. Not with that. Not against whatever was taking us out one by one.
Maybe barricade the door?
She said.
Yeah, let's...
Wait! It was a good idea, but it was too dark. That, and I could hear the footsteps coming again. Faster this time. Determined. The thing entered on its own. No guiding voice. Lindsay and I held hands and pushed ourselves up against the wall. I couldn't hear it dragging anything this time, but I could hear lips smacking, followed by these high-pitched micro-grunts. Whatever it was loud, and it was munching on something. It wandered around for a while, feeling around the table, the chest, and even the little side room. After a few minutes, it seemed satisfied not to have found us and headed back to the door. Just as it was about to exit, we hit the 90-minute mark. The game, partly automated, was still running. The projector came on again, displaying this large woman in the ceiling. The entire room was lit up. It immediately saw us. The thing was easily 6'8". It was dressed in this sort of torn varsity jacket, with filthy, mud-covered jeans. There were long strands of black fur poking out of every cut and tear in its clothes, making it look like a badly stuffed scarecrow. It wasn't fully human. His head looked like a boar. It looked right at us, its snout twitching with excitement. He had these small, dark eyes. I'll never forget how, when it looked at me, they lit up with nothing but joy. No matter the species, you can just tell. It was looking forward to this. There was no fear, no malice, just unbridled, violent joy. Like a kid tearing into a happy meal. Meeting my eyes, the thing just screamed like a wounded pig and charged. I stepped on my own feet and stumbled backwards. Hadn't it been for Lindsay still holding my hand, I would have gone down like a sack of flour. Instead, I barely stayed on my feet as we rushed to the other side of the room.
Still down there, playthings.
The recording in the ceiling spoke.
Will you not give up?
As the video played above us, the light in the room shifted. Whenever she was more in frame, the light grew more distant. When she moved back, the full moon came into view.
He'll get you, playthings.
The narration continued.
It is so futile.
There was blood on his jacket. Fresh blood. As the video finished, we'd ran a full lap of the room. We were back at the door, and this time he was charging straight ahead. At the last second, Lindsay let go of my hand and we fell to the side. The boar man ran straight into the door. It seemed to upset him as he focused all his rage on it, pounding, tearing, biting, all the while roaring like a wounded animal. His joy was gone. This was frustration, hunger. It didn't take him long to break the door open, and as light flooded in, he turned to look down the hall. The brightness from the street outside seemed to scare him as he took off out the back. Lindsay and I stayed on the floor a couple of seconds, just to ensure ourselves that the thing was gone. We eventually crawled out the door, ready to run. There were bloodied handprints on the walls, something resembling a fingernail, blood spatter on the ceiling. We ignored it all, got up and went straight for the exit. Come on, come on, come on. I'd sprained my ankle and Lindsay was bleeding from her hand. We were about 40 feet from the door when we heard that voice again. The voice that had guided the boar man. Neither of us turned to see him. We just had to keep going.
Tell them.
He screamed.
Tell them there will be no carnival games in the name of her ladyship. Tell them to fear. Tell them all. Tell them to fear the grinning witch.
He laughed so hard he couldn't breathe. Lindsay pulled me along when all I wanted was to collapse and cry. We burst through the doors and into the night. And far behind us, the laughter faded. Putting it all in writing feels a bit weird, like I'm telling someone else's story. But Lindsay is as real as the last time I met her, and I don't think we'll ever overcome the trauma. I still feel myself stopping at random times, listening for footsteps. Lindsay has developed a sort of claustrophobia. No more locked doors. Ever. The police chalked it all up as an armed robbery. The security cameras picked up 4 intruders getting in through the back door. 3 hooded figures and a large masked man in a varsity jacket. The case was handed off to a special unit and promptly dropped. We didn't get any updates after that. It wasn't filed as a kidnapping, or murder, or similar. All they could prove was the break-in. But as far as what happened to Dawn, Aggie, and the staff members, no one knows. There was no car speeding off into the night. There were no witnesses. They seemingly vanished into thin air. It is true that the Grinning Witch was a bit of a local legend. A witch that collected cursed animals and people and put them all in a box. The escape room barely had anything to do with it, though. It was just loosely based on that idea. But somehow that was enough to draw out some kind of hate sect. But I'll never forget the man with the boar head. No matter how I think about it, no matter how I try to wrap my head around it, I can't stop thinking about him. That was no man in a mask. That snout was wet, and those teeth were real. Nut jobs are everywhere, but that thing? No, it couldn't be. It literally couldn't be. I don't think this will ever be resolved. Why would it be? Things like this don't just happen. They don't. But this time they did.
Back in my frat days, I was one of the guys helping with the hazing. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it was nowhere near the kind of horror you see in the college movies. It wasn't just about humiliation. It was about getting to know people and dedicating yourself. They say that the best way to befriend someone is to ask them to do something for you. That way they are invested in you. It's harder to justify disliking someone or something if you've done them a favor. That's why we ask so much of our new pledges: time, sweat, and dedication. More often than not, we get it. It might be community outreach, small jobs, charity events, fundraising, all kinds of stuff. Like the year before me, where 4 of the pledges had a background in IT, while we effectively set up a campus computer support hotline. Crazy days. In my final college year, we had a more intense hazing than usual. The guy who was in charge had seen a few too many college flicks and went a bit overboard. To make up for it, we decided we were just going to do something fun and stupid for the final night of Hell Week. Rick, the guy who handled our finances, came up with the idea of a softball game. Then some asshole added to that, "What about a softball drinking game?" So that's how it started. We were going to play a game where everyone had a drink in their hand. You couldn't touch the ball or bases unless your cup was empty, and we'd have a refill station right by the batter and another further out in the field. It was going to be a complete shit show, but a funny one. something to let a little steam off. Previous years, we had a guy who could make his own alcohol. Cheap stuff, a moonshiner named Elton, lived not too far out of town, and made stuff from some kind of bark. Real prepper kind of guy. That year, Elton was having trouble with the law, not too surprising. So we had to try to find another guy. Rick had the brilliant idea to check Craigslist. We ended up with a guy out in suburbia, this strange loner kind of guy who made his own hooch in his backyard. We talked to him a couple of times and decided to go see him in person. There was no point tiptoeing around it. The guy was a weirdo, but we were asking for something weird, so it kind of worked itself out. The guy was named Ramses. That tells you half the story right there. Lived in this huge 2-story house all by his lonesome. Not even a cat. He looked like pretty much anyone. Tall, lanky guy with slick, horn-rimmed glasses. Had a quiet voice, but a sturdy handshake. Shook our hands and immediately showed us his garage. He had half his garage full of just boxes. This guy was taking and making deliveries on the daily, it seemed. He had a workbench with a bottling kit, a scale, and a label maker. I couldn't see what he was putting labels on, though. He talked to us like we were on a tour as we made our way over the mounds of empty boxes.
Been working on this stuff, on and off for years,
he said.
Got 3 fresh batches, rolling out on Monday.
Can you get it by Saturday?
Asked Rick.
It's kind of last minute, but we got a game. Saturday?
Ramses turned toward us, stroking his beardless chin. After a few seconds, he nodded.
If I heat it a bit, maybe. Could work. But that's gonna cost you extra.
Not too fast,
I smiled.
We're trying it first.
Ramses looked at us. We had a solid 6 seconds of quiet before he nodded and reached for a couple glasses. The liquid had a strange smell to it. It was like a very mild fungal whiff mixed with old water and salt. Upon closer inspection, there was a clear mix of bark, possibly pine. It had a mild discoloration, red almost, and a sort of heft to it. Texture. Ramses explained as he poured.
Mostly sunflower seeds, maple, and a bit of blueberry. Oily but, rich.
I declined as the designated driver. Before Rick had a chance to down it, Ramses added a little drink mix. Coconut, I think. Rick chugged it, wincing a bit at the taste. He looked up at me with a deep cringe.
No fucking coconut!
He spat.
Holy shit, that's vile.
I like it,
shrugged Ramses. Rick kept nodding at him over and over.
Yeah, this'll do. This'll fucking do.
We ordered 3 kegs for the softball game and went on our merry way. I didn't think twice about it. I wasn't the one holding the money. Ramses told us it'd be tricky and that he'd need as much time as possible, so he promised to drive up there with it himself. All we had to do was bring whatever drink mixes we wanted and enough ice to freeze a gaggle of penguins. We were all getting excited for it, especially the pledges. We had sort of a new guard, old guard kind of matchup, and it was going to be nice to just let off some steam. For the rest of the week, everything boiled down to shit-talking the other team in good fun, printing custom jerseys, and making chants. People were going crazy for it, and I wasn't about to stop them. Once Saturday rolled around, we made our way out to a secluded spot, an abandoned schoolyard just out of town. Most of us got there after lunch classes ended. We took our time setting up tables, snacks, and drinks. And of course, a beer pong table for those who couldn't play for one reason or another. Bluetooth speakers rocked shook me all night long, hours before the first pledges arrived. We were starting to worry that Ramses had just taken the money and ran. It wasn't much cash, but the guy had some definite scumbag vibes to him. But at about 2 in the afternoon, he rolled up with his semi and dropped it all off. He was gone long before I even got the chance to thank him. We filled up the coolers as best we could with various mixes in what we dubbed Ramses' Red Shine by now, thanks to the strange coloration. It was forbidden to start drinking until the first ball had been thrown, though, as to not pre-party ourselves into an early forfeit. One by one, the pledges dropped in. The new guard had dressed up in various shades of red, while us seniors were all blue. To round it all off, we had judges dressed in white stripes. We hadn't really planned on it being a patriotic theme, But god damn it, we were gonna lean into it. I was so hyped for it until it was time to draw straws for designated driver. You can guess who pulled the short one. I was put in charge of music and, if need be, driving. In return, I got a free pass to drink at the next event. It just kind of sucked that I'd be the only sober person at the last outing of the hazing. I was kind of bummed about it, but it was nice seeing everyone so relaxed. Good vibes all around. The game was on. First cup of the game was chugged by Brandon. Didn't quite make it all the way, but made a decent first run. The outfielders were eager to get drunk and were already sipping their drinks in between batters. Slogans and cheers were being thrown back and forth, and I could see a few in the back row already getting into the groove. And that should have been it. That should have been the whole night. Nothing else was supposed to happen, just bros being bros. But something did happen. What happened next is why the frat isn't allowed to drink anymore. Why people get quiet when they talk about what is now an 8-year-old party legend. Why some people fell off the map and why others are only talked about in hushed tones. But it wasn't obvious from the start. I sat by the sidelines all day long. To me, it all just looked like drunk guys doing drunk things. Someone slipping, some people hugging a little too hard. It didn't seem all that irregular until one of the guys in the back row stepped out of line, drunk off his ass. I don't think he even had that much, maybe like 2 cups. This guy, Steven, was not a lightweight. Got in on a football scholarship. So Steven steps up to me and pulls out his car keys. I figured he wanted me to make sure he didn't drive. But no, instead he put the keys between his fingers, like some kind of improvised claw, and stared at me. His eyes were pulsing, like I could see the blood push through them. Breathing. He leaned in, inches from my face, eyes so big I could see myself in them.
I was an eagle,
he whispered.
In the other world, I was a fucking eagle.
He let out this shrill, animalistic screech and just started slashing at me. He was nowhere near close, but I fell out of my chair trying to get away. When he realized he'd missed, he just started stabbing into the nearby table, over and over, bloodying his hands, screeching like a fucking maniac. I backed off, expecting someone to pull him away, but no one did. Instead, my attention turned to whatever was happening out on the field. Fucking pandemonium. One of the guys had fallen to his knees next to second base, screaming at the top of his lungs, "I'll never forgive them! I'll never forgive them!" As he clutched the base plate, 2 guys started fistfighting, one of them claiming he did a mother of 3, and another crying about how he would be 6 generations of leeches. One of the judges tore off his jersey, shrieking to the sky, "I was born of machines! A world without sun!" It devolved so fast, their pulsing eyes and convulsing movement turning them from partygoers into whatever, all in a few minutes. Screaming out nonsense, contorting their bodies like they were remembering something they weren't. As I turned to run, I spotted something in the cooler. Little white insects making their way along the edge of the ice cubes, slowly spinning counterclockwise in unison. To this day, what strikes me the most is just how damn fast it all happened. Everyone had been drinking on and off for quite some time at different paces and speeds, but it all hit them at the same time anyway, like a resonance. I thought that maybe someone had spiked it, some kind of drug. I'd seen people tweak out before, but this was just off the scale. I backed away, reaching for my phone. They were all too deep into their own worlds to notice me, even Steven and his impromptu eagle claws. I took a few steps down the path towards the parked cars, only to realize that they were all lowering their voices. Turning around, I recoiled from Rick, standing just a few feet ahead. He pointed at me with an arm he could barely keep up, his mouth agape like a fish out of water, his eyes blinking at different speeds, looking in different directions. Even from there, I could see his tongue was dry, a redness around his eyes, telling me he wasn't blinking. He just made this noise like a human siren, a long, monotone scream, like one long E, then nothing. I just stood there looking at him. I could feel their reaction before I heard it, how every pair of eyes turned to me and how they joined Rick in his outcry. This long, reverberating note digging into my skull, it made my stomach churn like something was bubbling inside me. I tried to keep walking, but my balance was so offbeat that I kept tripping on my own feet. It felt like my head was on a swivel. By some miracle, I made it back to my car. I fumbled the keys, scratching a deep cut into the paint, but I got the door open. The moment it clicked open, I saw a movement. They were coming. I slammed the door shut, feeling my insides relax as the sound was blocked out. I could see the windshield vibrate. I pulled out my phone just as two pledges flung themselves into my car. One of them completely smashed the windshield, while the other just flopped to the side, pulling down a side mirror. I felt my heart jump out of my chest as my fingers went cold. I put the car in reverse and prayed. It went faster than I expected. I could barely control my feet, so I just floored the gas, sending me practically flying down the dirt road. Just seconds later, I was flung forward, smacking my head into an airbag. I'd hit a tree. It is all sort of a blur after that. I stumbled out just as I saw these vague shapes coming down the road. I rolled onto the ground, landing flat on my back, knocking the air out of me. Looking up at the sky, I could hear them coming. Uneven steps and mishaps all along the way. They didn't care. It was complete, reckless abandon. At a glance, it might have been funny, stumbling over one another, over their own legs, bumping into each other, all making that awful noise, their faces slack, stupid, and ugly. Eyes reverberating with the pulse of that awful tone. With the car still running, I crawled underneath it. I saw their legs come into vision as they gathered in a circle, their screams slowly lowering back into their conversational madness. No one bent down to check under the car. I just saw dozens of legs anxiously stomping back and forth. Then one of them smacked his fist against the hood. That set the others off.
A spike!
One cried as he smacked his head into the driver's side window.
A spike in my fucking head!
Forever, ever dark, bawled another as he started to tear out the passenger side seat. As a pack, they took out their inane frustrations on the car, tearing out electronics, breaking plastic panels, ripping into every soft surface with their bare hands and teeth. I saw one of them come away with the steering wheel, then he bit down so hard that 3 teeth dropped out of his head. They completely smashed it. They tore into the motor while it was still running, making the machine cry out in a metallic pain before it died. I reached into my pocket to send a text for help, only to realize I'd lost my phone when I dropped to the ground. It was a few feet to my right, among the sea of legs. There was nothing I could do but to hold my ears shut, close my eyes, and stay as still as possible. Breathing in the dirt, still smelling that strange drink on their collective breaths, growing stronger. I don't know how long I stayed there. At some point, I saw one of them stumble backwards, clawing at his own open eyes, crying like a child. Had it not been for his swollen, bleeding eyelids, he'd have looked right at me. The sky darkened as their voices grew hoarse and weak. Hours later, they were still tearing into the car, littering the ground with everything from electronics and debris to their own blood, sweat, and hair. And still they mumbled, they wheezed, they cried. Then at some point, it just sort of stopped. It was like they'd fallen asleep, right then and there, standing in this mob circle around the car. The sun had sunk well below the horizon, casting long shadows. I waited a couple of minutes, held my breath, and went for it. My arm was stiff and my fingers weak. I'd felt an oncoming cramp on and off 4 hours, and suddenly moving didn't help. My pulse spiked as I reached for the phone, feeling the cool evening breeze on my naked hand. I grabbed the phone, retracted my hand, and almost gave myself away. They'd been stepping on my phone over and over all day long. The touchscreen was dead. My instinct was to scream, but instead I bit down on my lip hard enough to break the skin. Every nerve in my body tightened. What else could I do? Could I just walk off? Were they really sleeping? I couldn't risk it. I'd be in the middle of them, waiting to be torn apart. If they could do this kind of damage to a damn car, a person would be short work. I just lay there, counting seconds, making impossible plans in my head, feeling the car growing smaller. Every tiny movement I made felt like a surrender. I pondered just poking one of them, to get it over with, these intrusive thoughts taking over my rational ones. And yet, I did nothing. I remember blinking in and out of a painful half-sleep. I remember how they just stood there, legs like a forest of jeans, shorts, and tracksuit pants. With every breath they took, I could imagine hearing a voice speaking through them. An inhale, an exhale. E-O, E-O, E-O. Like a fucking lullaby from hell. As the temperatures dropped, I felt the shivers coming on. But as it seemed, so did my assailants. They were shivering something fierce. So bad, in fact, that some had to lean against the car or sit down. One by one they dropped, bloody, battered, and raw. Some just sat down, others collapsed. Another intrusive thought warmed into my head. This one's stronger than the others. Potent, desperate. Run! So I did, and I crawled out, my nerves aching from the sudden movement. I felt stray hands reaching for me, grasping at my pants, my jacket. Something grabbed a handful of hairs from my neck. But somehow, amongst this emerging sea of hands, I got through. Like passing your hand through a flame, it only hurts when you stop. I got out. Somehow I got out. I saw them all turn towards me, one by one, their eyes unfocused and worn. Some had passed out, others were about to. I realized, maybe too late, that these people were already defeated. They were sick. I reached for the closest one, an unconscious Rick, and dug out the phone from his pocket. As expected, he didn't have a screen lock. I kept looking back down at him as I dialed for help. The moment the call went through, his eyes rolled back in his skull. But I swear his mouth moved. A silent thank you. That whole night turned into a scary story around campus. Some don't even think it happened, but the Redshin night was definitely a thing. There are many reasons for people not to believe us, though. For example, toxicology came back negative. Just alcohol, and not even that much of it. Ramses was quick to leave town as he realized his fuck-up, leaving behind most of his distillery and empty boxes. Still, there was little to explain our physical reaction. It was just blueberries, maple, and the blue seeds of sunflower. I think somehow it was a mistake. He rushed the batch and something went wrong. That drink mix he poured with the first drink he shared with Rick? I think it was a neutralizing agent, just in case it wasn't ready. 4 of the guys went blind. One of them got permanent nerve damage in his neck. One of them broke his finger so bad they had to amputate. And that's just the physical pain. I can't even begin to imagine how many hours of therapy this caused. People were scarred and ruined for the rest of their lives, beating themselves into bloody submission. It got too painful being reminded of that night, so most of us have lost contact. Sometimes I read these articles, party gone wrong, young adults making idiots of themselves. Partygoers erupt into violence. And yeah, most of the time it's just a bad time. But I wonder, is it always like that? Or did someone just drink something they shouldn't? Hell if I know.